This video is about toning a canvas. You'll have to excuse the low quality of the video because it's from a pre-recorded Zoom session. Here we're going to talk about why we tone a canvas and how to do it.
It is a good idea to tone your canvas well in advance. We're not going to be transferring anything to it now, but we like to tone it early just to give it some time to dry. Okay, so a good solid standard, which I'm going to do today, is toning a canvas with burnt umber. Now, I could paint straight on a white canvas. However, much like mixing on a white palette, that first pass of paint is extremely deceiving if we're working on a white canvas. So oftentimes using a toned canvas can make your job a lot easier right from the beginning. So when I first started learning here, I didn't believe them when they told me that because that's what I do. And so I actually did my own tests. And if you have time or you want to do this, I took the same painting, a little 4x6 painting, and I toned a canvas and I did it on white. And I just did the same painting I just did a little cloudscape. I found a picture online. I just did little clouds. I painted it on white canvas and I painted it on a toned canvas. And I was seriously amazed at how much easier the tone canvas painting went. The tone can help you in so many ways. You can be strategic with it, or it'll just help kill the white of the canvas. They're both helpful, okay? So I just want to share some pictures of examples of toning a canvas. We're going to be going to start with a basic neutral tone with burnt umber. But here is an example of using a much more colorful tone. This is a very even tone. I didn't add brushstrokes to it, but I wanted this orange tone not only acts to kill the white of the canvas for my first pass to be effective, but it can also help unify the whole painting. So this was kind of a darker, mysterious, and kind of a glowing painting. And so I wanted to use that orange strategically. Here is an example of a more pinker tone that I used. I did this strategically because I wanted to be using some of that pink in the map that I was going to be doing in the background. This painting has a strictly raw umber tone. I was so proud of myself being super clever with this. So this was a white canvas that I had stretched. And the ending painting was these two women, and they had these stretched canvases behind them. And I wanted this to look like linen canvas, like the backs of canvases. So when I toned the whole thing with raw umber, it gave the look of raw linen. And so then I didn't have to paint that section, I didn't even have to paint a third of this painting because the tone by itself was effective. Okay, so you'll see this is a common thread. I'm a lazy painter. I want to do the least amount of work and still have it be effective. Okay, so the tone of this canvas actually worked as a finish part of this whole painting. Okay, what we're going to be just doing is so this is raw umber, this is a little bit more neutral. We're going to go burnt umber. Okay, so the tone of the canvas can really act not only as a unifier and and by unifier, I mean like we're using layers of paint, but all of our paint has a little bit of degree of transparency. The more that paint oxidizes, the more transparent it gets. So that underlying tone acts as a unifier for the whole space. Okay, so not only does it act as a unifier, but it kills the white of the canvas and makes our job in that first pass of paint a lot easier. And it can also be used strategically so that it creates less work for us later on, where maybe some of that tone shows through the canvas. You may have also seen where people do studies or portraits where they've just left the tone of the canvas and then they have more painterly paint on top. So it just acts as something to just create some visual space without being overly painted or overly fussed with. I'm a fusser. I tend to fuss. Okay, so I'm going to go over here and get set up to just show you guys how to tone a canvas. So this is my 11 by 14 canvas here. So what I want to have available to me before I start doing this, because I like to be prepared, is some paper towels. Which one's my minerals? These are my mineral spirits, right? That's my cleaning tank, but I'm going to use that anyways. I am going to put gloves on just because I tend to get pretty messy with this. On a scale of 1 to 9, if 9 is our darkest, our lightest light, I'm going to be shooting for like a 3. I don't want to go any darker than the 3. I'm going to shoot for like a 2 or 3. I just want to kill the white of the canvas and get this looking nice. But what I can do is I just want to show you how I would maybe tone, like if I wanted something brushy that maybe I was just doing a study on, or I want to use a brushy underpainting because I'm going to do some fur, and I just like how that looks underneath the fur. So the first thing that I typically do is, let's see, do I have everything? I'm going to use burnt umber just to kill the tone. Burnt umber is a great basic color to tone with because it's very fast drying. It's relatively neutral, but it is warm. So it's part of our red family. This is, next week we'll talk about color families, but this is part of our red color family. And you can see on the Michael Harding tomb, they kind of show you what it looks like. It's nice earthy. This is probably the paint that I use the most of other than white. All right, I'm gonna back up this camera a little bit just so you can see everything. Okay, so the first thing I usually do, has my paint squirted out. There we go. I usually put out more than I think I'm gonna need. Then I'm going to take my mineral, or I'm gonna take a paper towel, and I'm just gonna like clean the canvas to start. So I'm just gonna get some on my paper towel here, and I'm gonna I'm just getting it wet, but it's almost like I'm cleaning my canvas. So I don't want to be using too much solvent, but I need some to get the paint to loosen up a little bit. So I don't want this like dripping, but I want it kind of damp enough that I feel like once I start putting the paint down there, it'll continue to move around. Okay, so now it's kind of shiny. So I'm going to take the paint on the brush and see how it acts just dry like this. So I'm going to start doing this, and the mineral spirits that are down are going to allow the paint to loosen up as I work it into that paint. And I'm keeping this relatively brushy because hypothetically, maybe I wanted to use this as a brushy background for maybe a portrait, or maybe a still life that has some fur in it, but there's enough mineral spirits down here that it's going to move, or it's going to allow the paint to move around and without it getting too slippy sloppy. If you find that the paint starts to look speckly, it may be that it's too thin. That's likely because you have too many mineral spirits down. Okay, so that was definitely enough. That was enough oil or mineral spirits to do what I needed to do. So I could leave it like this. Like that might be kind of interesting to do a study on top of, but it's kind of dark. I would call this like a 5 value, and that's too dark for me. So what I can do is there's a couple things I can do. I can take a clean paper towel, clean dry paper towel, wipe off any excess paint, and I can start pulling off some paint with the brush and wiping it on my paper towel. So that's if I want to continue for this to be brushy. All right, so I'm just pulling off those paint particles. I'm not adding any additional solvent. I'm just pulling off what's already on there. Okay, So, you know, that lightens it up, and then I can come back in, push that all around. The paint's still quote unquote open. It's still moving around. It's not tacking up yet, but I can feel it's already starting to want to tack up. So now I want to smooth this out because I'm not going to keep this dark. Okay, so I could leave it like that and paint on it. That's not bad. It's a little bit lighter. But now I'm going to go for what we are going to be doing. So what I'm going to be doing is just taking a dry paper towel, and I'm just going to start doing this. Look at how much that clean, dry paper towel will pull up. So the paint is still open, still moving around. I'm not even following my own rules. I don't even have the top on my solvent right now. So the paper towel really, the kind of swirly movements really evens out this space, right? So that's not bad. That's, you know, if I want, I can, that's probably about a three value. If I want it to go lighter, I can take another clean paper towel with nothing on it, no solvent. Don't use solvent because that's going to really pull it off. But what I can do is I can take a clean paper towel and just go at it again. Oops. So the more I play with it with the clean paper towel, the lighter it's going to get. There's going to be a point at which you can feel that, like, you know, you really have to either introduce additional solvents or really start pushing at this. But this is already feeling pretty dry, and I don't want to like screw with this too much. This is a nice even tone, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. You just want a nice even tone. If I was like, I hated this color and I absolutely didn't want it on there, I could take my mineral spirits paper towel and, like, you know, go to town with it. But I just wanted to show you, like, on the corner, like, that'll pull straight back up again. But I don't want to do that. I'm just going to like rematch. So that's, I'm going to leave that. So right now, like, this won't pull up if I just put my finger on it. But if I took this paper towel, that's going to super reactive, that wet paper towel with the OMS on it or the solvents, that will totally pull it off. But right now, I don't want to touch this. I just got mineral spirits on my finger. But with a dry finger, that's already feeling pretty dry. I could probably paint on this in like an hour and have it not be too bad of a problem. But any liquids are going to start to reactivate this. This I'm just going to let dry for, you know, for a week would be great. But I could likely paint on this in a couple days and have it not reactivate. So that's how we're going to be toning our canvas for our painting and for our color study. That, I think this is a good value. So shoot for like a 2 or a 3 value for your tone. You don't want to be too dark for a tone, because then you're going to be fighting that. If you're doing a light scene or a light bunch of objects, don't tone really darkly. If you're working on a bunch of really, really dark stuff, having more of a darker tone is going to help you out, because then your paints are going to get there faster. But burnt umber in general is a great standard earth tone, and it's very versatile for many things. And so if I'm not really sure what I want to tone with, burnt umber is like a good standard solid go-to. On my website, I have a page of progress photos. So you can kind of see stuff in process. So that includes tone, that includes the drawing. So this was that painting that had, so you can see how warm this painting ends up, right? So having that orange as a base was very helpful. This was strategic. The background for this was strategic, because the pink not only helped out the map, but it helped out this background. So I was putting a transparent dark red over it, and then the background ended up having some of that show through. This is an example of a painting in which I tried out a yellow tone for the color study and I hated it. So I changed up the tone for the big canvas because the color study was like a nightmare to work. I tried a yellow background and it was not a good idea. It was really, I was fighting that tone the whole color study, and I was like, I don't want to deal with this on the big one. This is an example of, I had more of a brushy background, I think. No, it wasn't brushy. It was red. But you can kind of see why I chose red for that one. And let's see, so this is just a standard burnt umber background or tone. So I did that with the color study, and then I did the same tone for the larger painting. You can kind of see it here. Okay, so the tone of the canvas can really serve different purposes. What we're using it for here is just a simple unifier. We don't want it to be too dark because then we're gonna be fighting it. We have a lot of lights in the skin. So I want you to shoot for like air on the side of maybe a little too light, because it's easier to darken and it's easier to bring color down. So we always want to stay a little bit more colorful and a little bit lighter as we start. Okay, so our tone is going to be shooting for a lighter tone. Burnt umber is just a great standard. You could use raw umber too, but I think for the painting we're doing in those warms and the earthy warm tones that is in the Jerome copy, I think a burnt umber would be better off.